Understanding legislation within sports massage. This presentation will go through the legislation that you need to adhere to and be aware of as a practicing sports massage therapist. By law, you have a duty of care to your clients, and this can be described as the following: a person who acts towards others and the public with watchfulness, attention, caution, and prudence that a reasonable person in the circumstances would. If a person's actions do not meet the standard of care, then the acts are considered negligent and any damages resulting may be claimed in a lawsuit for negligence. So it's really clear that we need to practice a duty of care to all of our clients when we're practicing. Data protection and confidentiality. We will look at the data protection basics as a sports massage therapist, and we will cover informed consent a little bit later in the presentation. You need to be aware that there was a GDPR update in May 2018, and there was an extra learning for this within the sports massage online learning.
Data protection and record keeping. It's really important that you make detailed notes and keep all of your records of treatments from your clients, and this remains completely confidential. This may be in a cupboard that is completely locked, where you only have access to the records and it's under lock and key. It may be under a secure password protective system on your computer also. All records should be kept according to the 8 principles of the Data Protection Act, which was created in 1998. Records need to be kept for 7 years, but when you're working with children, they need to be kept for 5 years after their 21st birthday. And for terminally or seriously ill clients, the records should be retained indefinitely. These laws state that the data that you keep must be fairly and lawfully processed for limited purposes, adequate, relevant and not excessive, accurate, not kept longer than necessary, processed in line with the client's rights, kept secure, and not transferred to countries without adequate protection. So the main thing is we keep that data protected for that client and for yourself. If you're retaining client data online, for example, using a cloud-based booking system or cloud-based note-taking system, you need to ensure you register with the Information Commissioner's Officer, which costs £35 a year to register, which helps protect your data on an online system. And then lastly, when destroying data, if this is done on a paper-based data system, it needs to be done securely by shredding and disposed of securely as well. Tying in with data protection is confidentiality, and practitioners should safeguard the confidentiality of all information. Any disclosure of information, for example, to another healthcare professional, should only be with the client's written permission. The best way to do it is just ask the client in an email as well as part of the treatment as well. But it's really important that you get that permission from your client before you discuss it with another healthcare professional. And the main thing is that you treat all clients' information with care, and as again, always get permission if you want to discuss a treatment with another practitioner or health professional. The Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. This is the main legislation covering health and safety in the workplace and the umbrella for all other legislation. In essence, employers, managers and business owners have a legal duty to ensure, as far as reasonably practical, the health, safety and welfare of all persons on the work premises, which includes clients. Under this Act, employers must perform risk assessments on their workplace to ensure health and safety is documented and any issues are managed. Now, every place that you work at will have risk assessments to cover the health and safety of yourself, your clients and any other therapists in that building, or if you're working at events, you are covered in that as well. If you're working for yourself and you're out and about in home visits, you need to make sure you have risk assessments in place to cover yourself under the Health and Safety at Work Act. The Provision and Use of Work Equipment Regulations 1998. This legislation requires that the equipment provided for use at work is suitable for intended use, safe for use, maintained in a safe condition and inspected to ensure it is correctly installed, used correctly by people who have been trained to do so, is accompanied by suitable health and safety measures such as protective devices and controls, and used in accordance with specific requirements. Now, most equipment that we might use as a sports massage therapist would be a massage couch, desk, chair, maybe a laptop, printer, computer. In terms of electrical devices, they need to be pat tested by an electrician to make sure they're safe for use. But this goes into all equipment that you may use that may not be electrical. And it's worth just having a chat with the person who owns the clinic or providing the sporting event to make sure all equipment is safe for use. Health and safety points for sports massage locations. Now, these are all the things you want to consider whenever you're working in any location as a sports massage therapist. The first one is risk assessments. And it's really important that if you're working with another company, either an employee or a contractor, they have these policies in place for any home visit, work, clinic or sporting events. If you're working for yourself and on your own, you also need to make sure these are in place. The next one is hand washing and toilet facilities. Pretty straightforward. You need to make sure you can wash your hands between clients and yourself and clients can use the toilet. If you're working at locations, you might be working in a field, at a running event, or somewhere that you don't always work, and facilities might be few and far between, then it's really important that you have things like antibacterial wipes, antibacterial hand wash, hand sanitizer, to keep yourself clean and hygienic in between working with clients. The next one is more related to working in a clinic location, and it's to make sure that all the electrical equipment is tested for safety. This is by something called a PAT test, and an electrician will do this for you. But if you're working in a clinic that has an electronic couch, a computer, printer, card machine, you want to make sure all of those equipment are safe to use. And lastly, there's adequate insurance in place. So if you're working for another company, you've got insurance. They have insurance in place to work with contractors. If you're working at events, your insurance covers you for event work, but also the event organisers have their own insurance in place.
Chaperones and safeguarding within sports massage. A client may wish to bring a chaperone to treatment as a support for them, and it's both for legislation but also support if they need a second set of ears to receive the information, or if you're working with clients that don't speak the same language as you, they can help translate. As a sports massage therapist, it's really important to request the client brings a chaperone in certain circumstances, such as working with children under the age of 18, working with vulnerable adults, so then to protect yourself and your client. Safeguarding. As a sports massage therapist, it is important to understand what safeguarding is when you're working in environments where children are in the area or you are directly treating children. It relates to the action taken to promote the welfare of children and protect them from harm, and is defined as protecting children from maltreatment, preventing impairment of children's health and development, ensuring that children grow up in circumstances consistent with the provision of safe and effective care, and taking action to enable all children to have the best outcomes. If you're working with children in a sporting or a clinic environment and you're concerned about their welfare and safety, the best place to go to begin to get the information you need to help is through the government website at gov.uk. From a working perspective, if you do work with children in clinic, then you want to make sure that there's a parent or guardian as a chaperone when you're working with them, and you don't need a DBS check for this. But if you're working within organisations such as schools, colleges and sports teams, you may require a DBS check.
Informed consent.
Informed consent. This is a legal requirement and an important part of your practice. You have to get consent to everything that you're going to be doing with your client, and they need to be fully informed of the assessment and the treatment methods that you wish to use with them in your session. It's providing your client with all of the necessary information so they feel completely comfortable, confident and safe in your presence. For clients that may not have had sports massage before, this is really key to explain to them exactly what happens. And this can be from the first form filling out to the assessment methods that you may use in terms of range of movement, functional or palpation assessments, and also in terms of dress and what to wear. Some clients may not be aware that they might need to move their clothes as part of their treatment, and you want to make them feel safe and secure in your environment. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, because making them feel safe makes that person feel calmer and more relaxed, which then helps the nervous system if the client is experiencing any pain or discomfort. The informed consent is to be documented on a treatment form as part of the initial consultation before any assessment or treatment occurs, and is added to your terms and conditions. The best way to do this, if you do have it on your online form to begin with, is just read through it with them before you go into any of the practical elements of any of the assessment and any of the treatment. And alongside that, just check in with your client throughout each stage just to make sure they're okay and they feel comfortable with everything. You don't want to ask them too much, you don't want to scare them off, but it's worth having that question with them just every now and again just to make sure they're okay, especially if you're working in areas that might be more sensitive to the client. The Council for Soft Tissue Therapies has an informed consent guidelines to help you follow in your practice, which we have the references at the end of this presentation. And we also have an example of this in your handbook, which you can use with your clients as part of your case study and then in your practice also.
It is essential that you work within your boundaries of informed consent. So no matter your intention, to examine or treat someone without their express permission may be considered assault or an invasion of privacy. It's really important that you ask at the beginning of your treatment, but also throughout. Informed consent needs to be valid. It should be given freely by someone with the mental ability to do so, or someone who has reached the age of majority. So within the UK, the age is 18. If you're working with children, then their parent or guardian can provide the informed consent. Sufficient information must be given to clients to give them a clear appreciation and understanding of all of the facts, implications, and future consequences of any proposed actions. So this is just about being honest and open with your clients, telling them the benefits of massage, what massage can and cannot do, and giving them the opportunity to agree or to not agree with anything that you recommend in terms of the assessment, treatment, or home care.
Following on from that, there are 3 required elements of informed consent. The first one is disclosure, and this is where we need to provide all the relevant necessary information to the client so they can make an informed decision about the treatment process. The next one is capacity, and that is the ability of the client to fully understand what's going on and the information that you've given to them in terms of their treatment, and to be able to make a reasonable judgment and the decision to proceed with the treatment. The last one is voluntariness, and that's the client's right to make a decision without being subjected to any external pressure or influence based on their treatment. So informed consent, other points to consider. You want to discuss the aims and objectives of the treatment, the purpose and the nature of the massage techniques you recommend and explain why you want to use them, any risks of treatment, the responsibilities of the therapist and client. And this is really important to know that your client, they aren't a passive person in their care, and they're an active participant in their recovery, which might be they may be moving during your treatment with them, but they also will be required to do homework at the same time. So it's really important that you go through these responsibilities with your client before you go through the treatment process. And the last one, which you've already discussed briefly, is what will happen in the treatment, including removal of clothes and working on areas of the body that might be more sensitive, and most commonly the hip and the pelvic region.
And there are consequences of non-compliance to obtaining informed consent. There may be legal proceedings against you. Your insurance may become invalid. You may lose professional membership, the right to practice, or inflict personal injury to clients. It's really important that you comply and always obtain informed consent before any treatment or assessment takes place.